Welcome to Transformations, interviewing people who are changing our world. I'm Diane J. Shaver, and every 2 weeks I interview someone who, in a moment of clarity, made a decision, decided what they were going to do to help make this a better world, and with courage and commitment and dedication, they made it happen. And my hope is that as you listen to each of these stories, that you understand that you have that same power within you, and that if there's something in your heart that you want to contribute to this world, you can do it. So hopefully you will catch fire from all of these people. So this started in Heavely, Idaho in 2012, and Luke Michaelson was leading a church youth group looking for a Christmas time project for the group, and he heard about a family whose children were sleeping on the floor. And when he heard that, his first impulse was to go out and buy beds. And then he thought about it, and he thought, wait, if I do that, that's one thing. But if I have our youth group make this a project and build beds, it will accomplish so much more. And that's what he did. And this was the very early beginnings of Sleep and Heavenly Peace. So he used his daughter's bunk bed as the pattern, and the first set was built and delivered. And over the last 2 years, the charity has exploded in growth and gone from a seasonal charity to a year-round venture. So eventually, you're all going to hear about Sleep and Heavenly Peace. So Luke's salary was cut in half. He sold his RV. He sold his four-wheelers. He's thinking about selling his boat, but he said he's never been happier. The mission statement for Sleep and Heavenly Peace is, no kid sleeps on the floor in our town. And what Luke says is we want our town to be everybody's town, and we want it to happen faster. So in October 2018, Luke was named as one of CNN's top 10 heroes of 2018. And the nomination awarded him $10,000, which he will use for the charity. By December 2019, the organization has 134 trained chapters. So right now, I want to let Luke Michaelson speak for himself and for Sleep and Heavenly Peace. So welcome to Transformations, Luke. It's wonderful to have you here.
Oh, thank you for having me, Diane. I appreciate it. This is great.
Good. So what was it when you found out about that first child that didn't have a bed? What thoughts went through your mind? What did you feel emotionally? What did you think? What was it like?
Oh, man, it was, first of all, you didn't expect it. I didn't expect it, and I think that's what was so shocking. We heard about a family that needed a bed, and we took these young boys from this, basically a Boy Scout group, 12 up to 17, 18. And we took these boys out, built this bed, and they delivered it. And I didn't get to go with them on that delivery. I stayed home and cleaned my garage because my wife told me to.
Wow, good man.
But what I heard was the just how neat the experience was. But since I didn't go on it, I didn't have a visual in my mind of what that scenario looked like. What a situation of a child sleeping on the floor really looked like until I met Heavely. So before the Heavely came about, we decided we wanted to build another bed, mainly because I wanted my kids to have the same experience of working together as a family, but for someone else. I again didn't have this vision in my head of what a child sleeping on the floor looks like. How can, if you've never seen it before, how can you vision that, right? And so it was really just, hey, let's get the kids together. Let's build this bunk bed. I know how to do it now. So let's go and find someone. So that's when we met Heavely. Now, Heavely was a 5-6-year-old little girl. She'd been living in the backseat of her mom's car her entire life. They just came out of homelessness. When I first met her, they had just got a home. She was one of these little blonde head girls, smile from ear to ear, didn't have what looked like a care in the world. When in actuality, she was living in some pretty dire conditions. We walked into the house and there was nothing in the house. There wasn't a couch to watch cartoons, let alone a TV. There wasn't a table. There was nothing. But she was so excited, and that was shocking in itself. But then when I went into that room, her bedroom, I mean, my gosh, there was holes in the carpet and on the walls, and she had toys there that were secondhand. She had pictures that she had posted, drawings that she did at school. But what really got me was when I looked in the corner of the room and there was her nest of clothing, and that was her bed.
Wow.
And that did something to me. I got to see it firsthand. And then the second thing that really hit me is when I looked over and saw that single mom, especially when we brought in the bed, just tears in her eyes. You could almost, being a father and having kids of my own, I could almost just see the last 7 years of that lady's life, that mom's life, trying to get her kids, the necessities she needs. And one of them just wasn't, it was a bed, but she couldn't afford it. And for years, what anguish she probably had to go through, it was visible on her face. And that probably affected me almost more than anything, really.
I think you bring up something that's so critical. And we talk about homelessness, we talk about people who are at the poverty level, but until you see it, you don't understand what it's like. And I think that in every human is a desire to help. But I think we get so isolated and insulated from other groups that are not like us that we can live with those things going on. But as you described it, I mean, you had a visceral reaction. You could not deny what you saw.
No. And there was my wife and my friend Jordan. He's our chairman of the board. He was with me, and it was about 30 minutes away, the town that we delivered to. And so when we got in the truck to go home, we had some time. We had some time to think about it.
Yeah.
I don't think we said much to each other almost the whole way home. And then when that emotion, kind of that finally settles, and you can kind of wrap your head around what you just saw. I mean, we immediately started scheming and planning of how we can do this more, especially, it's Christmas time, for crying out loud. We wanted to get these kids off the floor. And that right then is when we determined, look, no kid in our community was going to be sleeping in that situation if we had anything to do with it. And so that's when we started. I went to a bunch of different companies and landed at Lowe's. They were fabulous. They pretty much let us buy anything 50% off. So, I mean, me and my wife and my friend Jordan, we spent our Christmas funds and we bought 10 more bunk beds, and delivered them all before Christmas. And it was just the coolest thing.
Wow. When did you decide this was going to be a big project? It wasn't going to just be 10 beds.
That's a great question. I often look back at it. We had no intention of being some big national nonprofit. Number one, we didn't realize how bad the situation was.
Yeah.
The next, we built those 11 bunk beds that first year, and we just wanted to be kind of like a Christmas project. So the next year we built 15 in my garage, and then 10 up in Boise in my friend Jordan's warehouse, and the next year came around, so it was like 2014 at that time, and we thought, you know what, if we become this nonprofit thing, then we don't have to pay for it ourselves. Maybe some other people, because other people wanted to. I mean, we had a lot of people that wanted to help, and they were giving us quilts and donations and all sorts of stuff. So we thought, well, let's do this right. Let's figure out what a nonprofit looks like, and so. That's when we became kind of officially a nonprofit, and it's just the more and more people found out about us, the more and more we realized that there was no real good solution for solving children bedlessness out there. And so we decided, this is something we probably should ramp up and really take head on.
Now, were you working, or do you work for yourself all during this kind of formation process?
Yep. No one was getting paid. No one received a salary or any sort of compensation for 6.5 years. I mean, it was just a bunch of friends and family getting together, and building beds. You know, we just had so much fun.
Wow. Did you also have a job or
Oh, yeah.
a business you did during this whole
Oh, yeah. We were all of us had full-time jobs. You know, I just did this in my spare time, and took a lot of vacation times, especially towards the 2015 and 16, and 17. You know, we spent a lot of family vacations. We work around build days that were happening across the country. We'd go and build beds and then have a family vacation, and that's just what we did.
Wow.
That's what we did.
When was the crossover between we're going to use family time to do this and okay, we're going for it? When was that?
So I've been employed with a local company for almost 20 years.
Wow.
And just enjoyed what I did. I was executive vice president. I was looking to buy the company, being a partner, and Sleep in Heavenly Peace was just ramping up. It was like a train that we couldn't stop. Didn't want to stop. Yeah. I tried to slow it down a little bit just because I was spending a lot of time, a lot of extra family hours and stuff like that after hours trying to get this done. And it really was developing more and more into my passion. I just love to do it. And, when you have a passion like that, sometimes it's a little hard to go to work the next day and think about what you got to do there. And so about November of 2017, my work approached me about it, and they were very nice. They just let me know that I need to where's this going, right? And I just went home that day, and I went to my wife and I said, okay, sweetie, we have to make a decision here, and I can't make this decision, because if it was for me, if it was just me, yeah, no problem. I'd do this full time. I'd live in a shack if I needed to. I just loved it. But we've got 3 kids. We got a mortgage. It's not about me. This is about us, and I have to have your full support. And I got the best wife in the world, because without batting her eye, she said, absolutely, you have to do this. Wow. It's changed you. And I'm so grateful. Was it hard? Yeah, it's still hard. We had to sacrifice a lot, but when you look at it, a lot of people didn't have what we had, and we were very blessed. And so the sacrifice wasn't that much. Plus, I look back at my pre-SHP life, and my measurement for success was so different. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to stand here and say that I was wrong. I'm just going to say, for me, my measurement of success was, the money I made, the things that I had, the house I lived in. And it just wasn't a good measurement of success for me. Now it's totally different. It's how I can change the world. How when I leave, this world can be maybe a little bit better. And because I can't take any of that stuff with me.
It's really interesting how you describe what your criteria was for happiness before, because I think a lot of people are stuck in that. And happiness and acquiring things have never equated to one another. I mean, it's not that it's wrong, but it can't be the only thing. And one of the things that happens when you find that thing in yourself, that's why we're here.
Yeah.
And when you find that, you are blessed. So what do your children think of this, and how old are they?
So my son, let's see now, he's 16, my daughter's 13, and my little boy's 7. So Bo, my youngest one, was just born. In fact, I think we've got a few pictures of me and my wife delivering beds with, him as just a baby. And so they've grown up with it. And I sure hope it's landed like I want it to land with them. My son is very philanthropic. I mean, he goes and mows people's lawns for free and helps little old ladies with trash cans. And, so I think it's rubbed off a little bit, I hope. Because that's really what it was about. It was about, I was sitting on the couch, struggling internally with a lot of different issues, trying to find what really made me happy. And which I think a lot of people do. They you can't buy enough stuff to make you happy. And I think when I came across this project, and certainly when I built that first bed, that I felt like, you know what, I actually helped. I contributed to society. We call it an SHP, humans helping humans. You know what? It wasn't I wanted to do this not as a church thing or a political thing you know what? I was just a human being that wanted to help another human being. And that's really what SHP is about, is just humans helping humans. And we landed on these little humans, these little kids, because these choices, their conditions were something that was produced not from their choices, from someone else. And that just really resonated with me. Not that other people have hard times, but these kids, you know what? They don't need to suffer from other people's choices. And if we can help out with a little bit of that, we're going to do that.
Can you see the changes that has made? There is something, I remember wow, I hadn't thought about this forever. I was in Goodwill one day and someone had given me $100 they owed me. And I remember there was a little girl with her family. She probably was 8, and they were looking at a futon. And I asked them if they'd ever had a futon because they're hard. So they said, no, but she has no bed, and we want to get this, and we're talking about it. I said, oh, well, and she said, I love it, and she went to lay down on it. And I went to the cashier and I said, I want to pay for that, and then for the bedding and whatever, I have $100, so here it is. And also a toy that matched the coverlet or something. And I remember how I felt. And I understand a little bit of what you feel. And I think that's what it's about, that feeling of connection, of worthwhileness, if you want to use that. There's nothing like that.
So, you know what? I share the story often. The best way to describe it, Diane, is, we'd been running SHP for a while, a couple of 3 years. And, you get to the point where, you hear so many of these stories. And we were getting so busy doing almost the administration stuff. I hadn't been on a delivery for a while. And I remember this one lady, she was calling me and she said, she says, hey, she was part of, I think it was health and welfare at that time. I have this family, they need some beds. And, just things kept coming up, I'll get to it this Friday. I think we'll do it. And then something come up, next week. And it was about 2 weeks I kept pushing this appointment. And I remember sitting, laying in my bed, and it was like 8 o'clock at night. I had no intention of doing anything that night. And the thought just came to me. I said, you know what? I haven't done a delivery for a while. I can feel myself, you get that feeling. I just hadn't done it for a while. And I looked at my wife and I said, you know what? Do you want to do a delivery with me tonight? And she said, yeah, let's go. It's been a while. So I called this lady up, and luckily enough, they said, absolutely, come over. And, you're laying in your bed. You appreciate what you have. I walk into this house, and I don't know why it hit me so hard, because I'd seen it before. But here was a little family, 2 kids. They had one couch. That's what the entire family, the mom and the 2 kids, shared. She was sleeping on the floor. But when I walked into the room, this is what got me. Of course, there wasn't the furniture in the room at all. But she had, because we were coming over, she had neatly folded every single one of the kids' clothes. I mean, we're talking like military squared folds, and laid them on the ground. And, just the thought went through my head of what this mom had went through, and what she was, how she was so grateful that we were there. I mean, I lost it. And, you go home, we went to bed that night, and I'm sitting there, I just cried because I'm sitting in my own nice, comfortable bed. And I had been for 2 weeks, Diane. I'd been sitting there just enjoying my own pillow. And just to think what these kids have been sleeping on when I could have been over there, sometimes it's kind of a guilty feeling, but yeah, once you see that, and then you can sit there and realize, for the next, I don't know, 10 years, those kids will enjoy a nice place to sleep. It took a couple of hours to build that bed. Holy cow! What better use of your time,
And you also gave them hope. You didn't just give them a bed, and they understood that someone cared. That's really powerful.
We provide beds on the outside.
Yeah.
But really, we provide confidence. These kids, think about a kid that, we all had sleepovers. We had friends come over and play and jump on the bed and had fun. They didn't have any of that. A lot of these kids don't have, the only possessions they have in their life is clothes and a backpack, So when we show up, we tell them, look, this is your bed. This isn't your parents'. This is your bed. You get to draw on it. You get to color on it. You get to do whatever you want on it. This is your bed. And, here's a stranger that they've never met that is showing them this love, or strangers, when you deliver, they see the love that people have for them. They have the confidence of ownership. They have some. It's really funny. I love the little kids. Oftentimes you come and you'll get these little kids that they cling to their mom, and they don't, because you're building this bed and they just don't know yet, what's going on. And about 5 or 6, 10 minutes later, they're running and jumping and laughing. And here's this one kid that was so shy that, was just nervous, that when he finally gets on his bed, they just come alive. And it's a sight.
Wow. So this is not just about beds.
No. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Well, and then you got the mom, and you got a mom sitting there. Most of these kids sleep with their parents, because they don't have a bed. And so the mom's not sleeping, or the dad's not sleeping very well. And they've got an 8-hour shift that they got to go do. And it's way more than just a bed. It's way more than that.
Sure. So let's get back to some technical stuff. So do you have 134 chapters, if I remember rightly?
So currently we've trained 166 chapter presidents.
Okay.
We have 150 right on the nose right now. Chapters, if you look, you can kind of see in the background, you see my map there with all my pins. We have 150 launched chapters. Some of them aren't quite active yet, but they're working on it. This Saturday, we're training 17 more, and they're all from all sorts of the country. I think we're only missing 8 states left.
Wow. Are you in South Carolina by any chance?
Oh, yes, we are. Absolutely.
Good to know. All right, that's where I am. So I'm really good. I will look that up.
Yeah, please do. They'd love to have you.
Yeah. So tell me the structure of the chapters and how you train people and what kind of people you look for, or just explain all of that.
You bet. So we knew a long time ago that we had something very special, mainly because there wasn't anybody that was really providing the same need. There was one organization in North Carolina that was doing it, Beds for Kids, which is a great organization, but that was really it. And so we knew we had this niche. The question was how do we get this expanded out? The beauty of it, Diane, was what we call first generation chapter presidents. And that was people, friends of ours or friends of friends that saw what we were doing, that said, you know what, hey, I'd like to maybe do this in our area. And so in 2017, we started adding chapters. And they were all friends of ours, and like I said, family members that lived one was in California and Texas and Utah. And we started putting these, we'd call them on the phone and we'd talk to them. Well, once we were filmed and featured on Micro's Returning the Favor on Facebook Watch, we knew we were going to get you know, an onslaught of people that were going to be at least interested in learning about us. So we had to put a process together. What we didn't realize is how big that onslaught was going to be. We thought we'd put on like 20 chapters, you know, we'd get maybe 100 people that were interested. No, we had over 3,000 chapter requests. It just from like 10 different countries too.
Wow.
And so we had this process in place where now if someone's interested, they can go to, we give them a link that they go to, Sleep in Heavely Peace, or excuse me, shpbeds.org/start-a-chapter. That sends them to a webinar that we've pre-recorded. It's about an hour long. And it gives everybody about a 10,000 foot view of what SHP is, how we do it, how a chapter president runs. I mean, the biggest point is we wanted our chapter presidents to really understand what it means to be a chapter president, because it's more involved than just being a volunteer, right? There's some time there. And then they fill out an application, which is us getting to know them and then kind of getting to know the process of being a chapter. Like, you know, rate yourself on how you fundraise and how do you feel like you are organizing a group and an event and yada yada. So once they go through that, then and they submit their application, it goes to one of our regional directors, which we call them chapter support leads. We have 9 of them throughout the country, and then they host webinars that they can be involved with and ask questions and whatnot. And then once that's all done and they're still ready to go, again, the biggest thing is we want them to understand the commitment that's involved here. Then they have to fly to Twin Falls, Idaho, and that's where we do training.
Wow, I love it.
Once they come to training and be involved with that, then they go back to their hometown. They raise money to get their tools, what we call their team build, because at that point they're just launched. They're kind of announced. We used to call them announced. You're an announced chapter, but you're not active yet. You got to do a team build. You got to build a first bunk bed or a few, learn the process, get it down, work out the kinks, and then we switch you to active. And so most of our chapters now are active. I think we've got 135, 140 maybe that are active, with 10 that are launched, and we'll have 17 more here in about a month.
Wow. So they have to get trucks too, so that they can transport stuff.
Not necessarily, you know, they some people don't have that type of automobile, so they rent U-Hauls.
Okay.
You know, the beauty about what we do is really chapter presidents can go as fast or slow as they want. We try to make the chapter as independent as possible, you know, so they get if they only do 1 build a year, that's fine. They only do 1 build a year. We have chapters that do builds every other weekend, which is crazy, but you know, they get to go as fast or slow as they want. We at the corporate office, you know, we take care of all the registration, the insurance, all the taxes, all that jazz. You know, that's our role.
Yeah.
But really, our committee. So I'm the executive director, and the directors that are below me that report to me, their number one mission, I've given them their number one mission is chapter support. That's it. So whatever we need to do to support their chapters, that's our main priority, because the chapter president really is the most important role.
Sure. I have this theory about life, and here it is. So you can disprove it if you want. It's okay. That all of our previous experiences lead us eventually to the thing that we're here to do. And all those experiences are resources for us to build on. So if you hadn't been a VP and had that corporate experience, this would be much harder to put together. So do you ever think about that? That was your training ground.
You know what? I think whether it's true or not, Diane, it's sure great to think about, right? It's sure great to have that attitude. I learned a lot. I learned a lot in business. I learned a lot how to work with people, how to navigate, how to sell. No question in my mind that was a good training ground for me to put together what SHP is. And really, probably the biggest thing that, I coach and talk to other nonprofits that are struggling, that want to grow, and I tell them, especially ones that are starting out, probably the biggest piece of advice I can give them that was hard for me to learn was, if you want your nonprofit to do well, you got to get out of the way of it. Yeah. And what I mean by that is, if SHP was going to go anywhere, or rather, if I thought I had all the solutions and everything needed to be done the way I wanted it to be, I'd still be in my garage on my hands and knees building beds. There's just been so many people that have been involved and have come to the table with so many great ideas. I learned very quickly that I had to swallow my pride, and other people in the organization had to swallow their pride too, and realize that we call it the SHP family. And there's good ideas, there's bad ideas, but everybody gets heard. And we really, you have to put yourself aside, get out of your own way, we call it, and allow your organization to grow by itself. And what does that do? That brings people together, that people have a sense of ownership. They have a sense of being involved. All our chapter presidents, it's really funny. We have a way we build beds and we train them that way, but every single one of them tweaks it just a little because they want it to be theirs. Right. And I totally get it. I really do. And as long as they don't tweak it too much, absolutely. This is how we do it in Tallahassee, Florida, or this is how we do it in San Diego. It's really fun to see, but what does it do? It gives people ownership of what they're doing, and it helps them develop their passion, because you know what? SHP is way bigger than one person. It always has been. My passion for SHP has been great. It's a passion for getting kids off the floor, but you know what? I'm not the only one. And there's a lot of people that have the same amount of passion for the same problem. We just want to be the avenue. We want to be the boat that takes them there,
It's really interesting because what I used to coach entrepreneurs. I still do some, but any business or any organization takes on a life of its own. It's organic and it grows and it lets you know what it wants to be.
Yeah.
Really interesting. Yeah.
If you don't allow it, I mean, SHP is a perfect example of that, Diane, because we had no idea what we wanted it to be. I mean, I guess we kind of had a dream, everybody we'd love to build beds around the world. How do you get from there to there? Oh, I have no idea. In fact, I had a lady in my office this morning who wants to start a nonprofit. She's like, how do you get to where you're at right now? And I looked at her, I can't tell you. I don't know how. It started here and it just flowed. And there was things that came into place that just made it work. And it was a lot of work. Yeah. But some of the hardest work is allowing that adaptation that you talk about, allowing your own entity to grow into what it is today. Yeah.
So Luke, do you mind that your role has changed? I mean, you were originally building and delivering, and I'm thinking now with what you're doing, your whole role has changed.
Oh yeah.
You're the keeper of the vision now.
It is different. In fact, when I came off, or rather when we were announced as a top 10 CNN hero, all the top 10s they have a chance to go to Los Angeles and participate in what's called the Annenberg Foundation, or the Annenberg Alchemy. If you've ever heard of it, yeah. It's a national training ground for nonprofits. Just excellent training. Well, in that training, we learned a lot. Probably the biggest thing we learned was the difference between the board and the executive director. One was organization stuff, and one was governance stuff. Management and governance. That's what the two things. So what we needed to do was, I had to come off the board if I was going to manage SHP. And I was the right person because of being the founder and knowing the ins and outs. So coming off the board was a really big emotional day, both me and my wife, because, we'd started it, and you almost feel like you lose a little control when you come off the board. But it was weird, that was one of the bigger transitionings for me. But it's a huge blessing, because I just enjoy seeing everybody else be successful. So I get a little bit out of watching the Facebook pages and seeing them delivery and seeing them build beds. And it's just a different feeling, I still get to go on deliveries. I still participate in a lot of builds. Diane, it is the greatest job in the world. I just love it.
Oh, and I think as a vision keeper, which is what you are, and that passion, when you go and talk to people about it, and when you're training people, even if it's remote, you give them courage, and you give them kind of like the right to go do this, so that's an important role.
Yeah. Oh, people need a beacon, and I laugh. Maybe I'm not the greatest beacon, but I certainly try. But people appreciate the cause, and that's the thing. Is it's not about one person. It's about the cause, and that's why when people come and talk to me about, how do you get from point A to point B, I just tell them it's not me. It wasn't, and it really wasn't. It was the cause. I mean, when you talk to people, let me back up. I remember a story. I remember an event. This is when we realized, amongst other times, but I'm rambling here, but we were at lunch with a friend, with Jordan, my buddy, talking about SHP. Just a random lunch, talking, this is what we're going to do, scheming for the next year, blah, blah, blah. We had a lady come up to us out of the blue and said, I apologize. I overheard your conversation, and I was so moved. Here is all the money I have in my wallet.
Oh, God.
And what do you say? I was like,
oh,
really? And I mean, we just got teared up, and that is the passion that you just can't, it's all organic. You can't manufacture that. And Sleep in Heavenly Peace has such an organic passion behind it. Everything grows off that. We just want to make sure we don't hinder it. That we need to allow it to happen. We need to be here we have to, obviously navigate it, but there are so many good people out there. I mean, you read the news and all the doom and gloom and all that crap. It's hard to realize that 90% of the people are awesome, and they're great, and they want to do good. That's one reason why SHP blew up, is because we found and realized that there was a lot more than just us that were interested in helping people, but they just didn't know how. Yeah. And really, we weren't any different. I mean, I loved helping people, and I'd go mow lawns and scrape driveways and do all that kind of stuff. I just didn't find that one thing that I just really loved. I didn't even know what it was.
Yeah.
And when people see SHP or the ocean or dogs or, whatever their passion is, it just clicks with them. Yep. And, but they don't know how to harness it sometimes. And so with SHP, we just wanted to make sure we gave them that avenue to take.
Wow. I just love all of this. And that's why I do what I do, because there are people like you, as you said, out there. There's tons of people doing these things, and we need every one of you. But anyway, so your original vision was what, and what is your vision now for Sleep in Heavenly Peace, Luke?
Well, our vision has always been our mission statement: no kid sleeps on the floor in our town. What's unique about that? There's two really unique things about that mission statement that we just dumb luck found. Most mission statements describe the company telling the audience what they're going to do, right? Our mission statement's kind of backwards. It's the volunteer. We meant it for the volunteer to say that. No kid sleeps on the floor in our town. We want people to be saying that, because this is a community thing. So the mission statement really has always been our goal. And it's always been every decision we make is based on, okay, is this the helping the volunteer complete his mission of no kids sleep on the floor in his town? So initially we obviously wanted Kimberly, Idaho, and Twin Falls, Idaho. We wanted to take care of that mission, and then it moved to Boise, and now it's all over. And so really the mission doesn't change. We have a much bigger scheme simply because the foundation we have with SHP is now a lot more solid. The process for bringing chapters on now is a lot more solid. So now, bringing on a chapter in Alaska, Anchorage, Alaska, is a piece of cake. Bringing on a chapter in Canada and Australia and New England, or not New England, England, those are the next steps. We're actually flying to Canada in 3 weeks to establish the SHP Canada.
Congratulations. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And the Canadian people, to me, are like made for this. They have such heart, as far as I know.
Go ahead. We have over 100 applicants for starting chapters in Canada.
Wow.
So we have to lay the foundation. We have to, get the boat ready so we can start selling it. And that's where we're at. So here in about 3 months, we'll be ready to bring on Canadian chapters.
Wow. This is kind of a sidebar, but it struck me, so I want to ask you anyway. Since you're seeing all of these families in these situations, do you have any insight or anything to say about how people find themselves in those situations and what we need to do as a country to acknowledge those people? Because your first statements early on were about how you felt when you saw this, because you had no idea that this existed.
So there's a couple of things in there, right? It's hard. People reach the point that they need our help for a lot of different reasons. Some of them are self-inflicted. Sad to say, it's whether it's drug addiction or some sort of addiction. Some of it is domestic violence. We help a lot of single moms that have escaped rough situations. Some of it is poor planning. I think it's a hard one to put your thumb on. What I will say is the beauty of a community helping a community, or a unity and community, we call it, is whatever situation that these people find themselves in, there is and can be and should be a community that wraps their arms around them. And as long as a program is there to help move that person to the next level, I think that we as a community, and eventually obviously a nation of communities, I think we can improve these circumstances of these people. Because a lot of them, they're trying. They're really trying. Even if it is, I think we can be pretty judgmental when we find out there's a drug addiction or there's abuse or something like that. It's hard not to be judgmental, to be honest with you. But we tell all the chapter presidents, look, you're there. You're not there for the parents. You're there for the child. Yeah. And as long as you keep that same focus, that you're there to help a child out, our job is really easy. Yeah. Our job's super easy, and the circumstances that they're in, we're just going to improve it. But you find out, Diane, that these parents, they really want the best for their kids. They're just struggling, Yeah. And if this gives them that extra little less of a worry or confidence to get them over that hump, what better use of our time?
Yeah. One of the things that you said in this statement right now struck me, and that is, like, a lot of people want to help, but there's no vehicle. So what Sleep in Heavily Peace is doing is giving them something to begin that journey. And then from there, who knows what else can happen.
Well, we've always said Sleeping on the Peace has really two missions. Obviously, our first goal is to get kids off the floor. But the second one, like many other nonprofits I'm learning, is to give a very yearning and willing community an opportunity to help itself. Because, I've said it a million times, for me anyways, true joy comes when you stop looking at yourself and help someone else. Absolutely. And you know what happens, Dan? And I was no different. I mean, I was a guy sitting on the couch, worried about Christmas presents, worried about my, what am I going to get my kids? Is it going to be like the neighbors next door? I mean, you're worried about all this crap. And when I stopped and said, you know what? I don't care whether I have another Xbox. My time is going to be spent to help get that kid off the floor over there. That's something I can do, and it's something that's going to benefit him for years. All those worries, all those complications, they just went away. And it just wasn't a need anymore. And that's why I said, financially, I mean, we all have finances we need to take care of. But A, it wasn't a measure of success for me anymore. And B, it wasn't a priority. I make enough to cover my family, and that's great. We have a great living, but helping other people, problems in my marriage, problems with my kids, problems with neighbors, with work, it didn't mean they just never came up anymore. And we had a really good dinner after the Returning the Favor aired. That night we had 9 chapter presidents at that time. Wow. And we were all around a table having dinner. None of these people have ever met each other. They're all from different parts of the country. It was the coolest dinner, Diane, because Jordan stood up and he said, let me ask you 2 questions. Number 1, I'd like to go around and have everybody say why they started in SHP, and then what it did for them personally. Mm-hmm. And that was an amazing experience, because you heard people talk about, it saved my marriage. It saved my kids and I's relationship. This is the first date that me and my wife have been on, delivering beds. That was the first date that they've been on in 2 years. Can you imagine? And I just sat back there, I mean, tears in my eyes, just going, you know what? We're helping. SHP is helping a lot more than just a bed. And it's about bringing out people's passions, giving them the way to express their passion. And all I know is, if people take that jump, take that little, I call it a tiny moment. If people take that tiny moment that we all have, a little bit of inspiration that we feel, and just act on it. Just get off the couch and act on it. It's kind of like going to the gym. We all know we need to go to the gym. We all hate going to the gym, but when you're done, you feel so good. It's like that. But it's such long-lasting effects,
But I think, Luke, one of the things that's implied by what you said, when we lose ourselves is when we find ourselves. And when we're focused on ourselves and every little thing that's going wrong, we lose perspective. And it is in that finding something larger than ourselves that really brings out who we really are. That's when we know who we are.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, how many times do you worry about stupid little stuff that your life is involved with? And, again, I just say, when you focus your thoughts and your mind on helping someone else, those cares just melt away. Those problems, that depression, it just goes away,
I mean, everyone that I've interviewed has been miraculous, and you're all saying the same kinds of things. When you find that thing and you go for it, nothing else matters. Yeah. And it gives things, and most of the people are doing things that incorporate children, because I feel like children are the ones that are coming along now, are going to be the ones that really turn everything around for us.
Yeah.
And so when you give something to that child, a bed, a sense of identity, a sense of belonging, a sense of ownership in a way, to that child, you are building that child's future.
You know what's interesting? I had a lady in my office a couple of 6 months ago. She's starting a company that brings nonprofits together with corporations. And the reason why, now, if you really think about this, this is really exactly what you said. Say what you will about millennials, but one problem that they have with millennials nowadays is a millennial get hired by a company. Company obviously spends a lot of money training them, but they only stick around for a year or a year and a half. And one of the main reasons why is because the millennial or these kids coming out of college find that their company doesn't invest or doesn't give back in a meaningful way to the world. Yeah. And that is really affecting these millennials. So what do? They go and find another job.
Yeah.
And so this is a real problem with these big national organizations because they aren't philanthropic, at least in the open. And these millennials, they're losing, it's billions of dollars that these corporations are losing training these new employees. But if you really think about that, you've got, and you said it exactly right, we have a rising generation that, guess what? Their measure of success is different than these old, these rich typhoon guys. Yep. Their measure of success is, you know what? I'm happy to have a car if I have one, but I want to make sure it's the right car. Or I'm happy to, I want to go play in the ocean, but I want to make sure it's a clean ocean because I want to give back. They really care about these issues. Yeah. And so this lady was trying to help corporations. They were being hired by corporations to find nonprofits that these corporations could then invest into, so their millennials and these new hired kids felt like the corporation had a meaningful background.
And the end product is going to be that those corporations, not realizing it, are going to start getting more enlightened because they will get pulled into that different mindset. So that will be very interesting. And I think about the kids from Parkland. Look at what they've done. And the kids that went on the climate strike all around the country. And Greta Thunberg, that little 16-year-old German girl sitting down. And it's so funny because she's a little girl. And there are all these big adults sitting around this table, heads of states, listening to her.
Yeah.
So, it's like, they have to have that voice. And it's so surprising. A small thing, a bed, can be the jumping off point for that child to have the courage to go and stand up and say whatever they need to say.
Again, despite the many health and mental benefits of having a good night's sleep, even putting that aside, that child recognized and just saw, 6, 7 adults and kids come into her home to deliver her a bed, to know that her community loves them. And when you come to a build, and Diane, you got to come to a build. I promise you, you'll love it.
I would love to do that. I'll find it.
To see 100 people of the community, they don't know each other, but they all sit there relying from one station to the next. I'm going to screw this out after you tap it. I mean, it's just amazing to see how they weave together to come together. For what? To build a bed for a child. It's just a neat experience, and one that, oftentimes people get upset because we don't build often enough. So it's a really neat thing. But it all goes back to, we have unity and community, and we have people that want to help, and they just don't know how.
Yeah, and so that's what you're providing them. So tell me what you look for in a chapter leader. What is it? If people listening, maybe they're going to be the next chapter leader. So what do you look for?
Anybody can. Probably the biggest thing is there is some time commitment and willingness to follow the program. We put together this program. It's very successful. But it does take some time. I mean, you're organizing weekend builds, then you got deliveries. But the funny thing is, Diane, we preach what we call a balanced chapter. And what we mean by that is this can get away from you really fast. It can consume you. I don't know how many chapter presidents call me up and they say, this is my full-time job now. This is all I want to do. And, it's just, it both is heartwarming, but gives me extreme anxiety.
Sure. I get that.
It's because, you do a build, you build 20 bunk beds, and someone at that.
I'm going to interrupt you 1 second. 20 bunk beds. Tell me about the time involved in that.
Great. So the beauty about a build day and how we do it is we schedule build days. So we'll go to a corporation, a car dealership, a bank, or, whatever, right? Any corporation that's looking for a team building exercise or, just a way to give back to the community. So we'll go and say, okay, for $350 per bunk bed, sponsorship, we'll build beds. Now that's mattresses, sheets, pillows, delivery, that's the whole 9 yards. If you went to buy this bed, it costs you $600. Just mattresses alone would be $250. So we say, okay, if you donate $3,500, that we can do 10 bunk beds, or $7,000 is 20 bunk beds. That's 40 beds, right? A bunk bed's 2 beds. So then we're mobile. So we'll go to their parking lot, to the warehouse. Some chapters have warehouses. They can come there, and we get all these volunteers, and we teach them how to take raw wood, literally raw wood, cut it, tap it, drill it, screw it, put it together to 20 bunk beds. With an active chapter, we can build about 10 bunk beds an hour.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Yeah, it gets fast. But if you ever seen like SHP Beds channel on YouTube or any of our chapter Facebook pages, you'll see videos of our build days going on all the time, and they're busy bees, man, just running all over the place. It's really fun to watch.
I love it. So I told you I'd be asking you this. Is there anything I haven't asked you or that we haven't talked about that needs to be said?
Two things really. One program that we started is our disaster relief fund, or a disaster relief program. Okay. It's a little bit separate. There's no chapter presidency really. It's when there's a national disaster like the fires, the Camp Fires, or Hurricane Michael. We have a fund that people can donate to help those kids and those families that lost everything. Now, our activity in that's like 3 or 4 months down the road when they finally get established. But that is a new program we just kicked off that we really are trying to get some donations for. We are having our first national disaster program build in Florida on June 8th. So you can kind of see what that's like. So that's the first thing. The second thing is June 15th, here in almost exactly a month, is our Bunks Across America build. And that is our national build day. So the second Saturday of every June, this year's June 15th, all of our chapters, as many as they can find sponsorships for, will be building bunk beds on the same day. We hope to build 2,500 bunk beds or 5,000 kids nationwide.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. So the information on the disaster relief, that's also on your...
Correct. On our website. Okay. Yeah, so shpbeds.org. You can go, you can find the disaster relief program. You can find the Bunks Across America, BAA. You can donate there. You can find if there's a registered build day going on in your local area. I know there is one in your area, Diane.
I'm going to find it.
Yeah, they'd love to have you. And, we accept both in-kind donations, monetary donations, obviously. These beds can't build themselves, so we welcome any type of support in any way.
This is wonderful. I can't thank you enough. I feel sometimes very selfish because as I talk to all of you, I just feel so great about the world. So thank you for doing that for me. Thank you for what you're doing for all these children, for the disaster relief. And thank you, Luke, for founding Sleep in Heavely Peace. I am so grateful.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So I want all of our listeners and viewers to understand it's one person making a decision, making a commitment, and that's what power is, by the way. And when you find that thing that pulls you, that you need to do, you don't need to worry about it because it will take on a life of its own and you'll find everything you need for it. So let all of the people that I interview on transformations, interviewing people changing our world, let them help you find your passion. And join us in 2 weeks. And you can also, I'm putting up a new website, so my apologies, it's not done yet, but you can find past interviews on transformationpodcast.com. So if you would like to help or find out about Sleep in Heavily Peace, and contact Luke Michaelson at sleepinheavilypeace.org, or find them on their Facebook page. And I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. And this is your host, Diane Shaver, saying, find your passion, find your courage, and go for it. Bye-bye.